Is there anything more frustrating than the hunt for an epic guitar tone? There are so many things to consider, and if you struggle to get a sound that you like, you may be obsessing over things that don't matter and ignoring things that are crucial. That's why, for today's episode, I baked a lovely guitar tone pie. My personal recipe for what it takes to get a sick guitar tone. In my 20 plus years of playing and recording heavy music, I've crafted countless badass guitar tones. And today, I'm going to cut up the pie into all the elements that affect the quality of your sound. And more importantly, I'm going to show you which ones matter most and which matter least. So the next time you're cooking, you come out with something badass. Welcome to the Riff Haven Audio Podcast. I'm Dan Ferguson, engineer, producer, owner of Riff Haven Audio in Long Island, New York. Today, we're talking about the many components of the guitar tone pie. A few years ago, I took a course. The instructor was Will Putney, who for me is one of the GOATs when it comes to heavy music producers. If you've ever listened to any of his productions, his guitar tones are absolutely crushing. The course was awesome. Essentially, it took you through every single detail of creating a song, from writing to mastering and everything in between. The band he was working with was Thy Art Is Murder. It was extremely thorough, and I was happy to find out that a lot of the techniques he was using were already a part of my process. That felt nice. But I also saw a lot of techniques that I wasn't using, and have since adapted those things into my workflow moving forward. As far as guitar tones go, there was one thing that was very clear. There is no one amazing trick to get a great guitar tone. It's the opposite. It's many small details that add up to something awesome. Not one magic bullet. It's a buckshot of many magic pellets. Many elements that combine to the crushing final product that you're after. Keep in mind that guitar tone is subjective. One person's favorite tone of all time might be one that somebody else hates. But none of that matters. What we're talking about today is all of the elements that you need to pay attention to when crafting your tone, and how much of the pie each one represents. So let's eat. Number 1, picking hand. You may have heard the phrase, tone is in the hand. Like it or not, it is. It's the most important aspect of your guitar tone. You can absolutely nail each of the next elements that we're going to discuss today, but if you pick like a scientist searching for a fossil, your tone's going to suck. Period. Make sure you're attacking the strings with your pick at the proper angle. And remember, each riff might require a different style of picking. If you downpick and alternate pick the same riff, it's going to sound completely different. So make sure you choose the one that fits best. This is where experimenting is a good idea. What do these chugs sound like if I move my palm a little bit closer to the bridge or the neck? After a little bit of experimentation, you should be able to find the right attack for the part that you're playing. Another thing you can experiment with is the pick. When you're playing live, play whatever pick you're most comfortable with. But when you're recording, try different stuff. Experiment with the pick size, the pick shape, the gauge. You would be surprised at how big a difference just changing the pick will affect your guitar tone. Another thing you should experiment with is the player. In that course I was talking about, they had everybody in Thy Art play the song. And in the end, they had one of the guitar players play both guitar parts and the bass. It was clear that the song just sounded best when he was playing the riffs. And that was the most important thing to them. Nobody had an ego about it, they just wanted it to come out great. At the end of the day, the band is the name that goes on the release. No one cares who played what, as long as the song rips. The second slice of pie is your instrument. Starting with new strings. How many times have you put new strings on a guitar and just been in awe of how great your tone sounds? That's not an accident. New strings are gold. Not only should you have new strings on when you record, but you should change them often. If you have a 6-hour rhythm guitar tracking session, change your strings before the next session. Just don't change them halfway through the song or you'll have an inconsistent tone. Next, make sure your guitar is properly set up. Warped necked, worn frets, buzz, a dead 9-volt battery. All of these things are going to kill your tone. Make sure you're properly set up before the red light goes on. And lastly, find the right axe for the job. Shoot out a few guitars that are available to you when you're getting ready to record. I always encourage bands to bring a few of their favorite guitars to the studio. We'll try those as well as a few of the guitars that I have, and it's always clear which one fits the song best. If we're quad tracking, we may use 2 different guitars for each set of rhythms, just to add more beef when the tones are combined. But that's another story for another video. The next slice of the guitar tone pie is one you may not be thinking of, and that is cable length. Yes, size matters. If you have active pickups like EMGs or Fishmans, cable length doesn't really matter that much. But if you have passive pickups like the Seymour Duncan Nazguls that are in this bad boy, I love this guitar. The longer the cable, the more signal you're going to lose. Stay away from those 25-foot cables that you play when you're on stage. The shorter the better. 6 feet or less is usually your best bet. That might mean changing where you're sitting while you're in the studio, but if you're playing through passive pickups, it's worth it to make sure you're not losing any tone. The next slice of the guitar tone pie is your cabinet. Believe it or not, it's your cabinet and the speakers that they're loaded with that's going to affect your tone a lot more than the amplifier that's feeding it. Some of you guys might know this already. If you don't, next time you're at a rehearsal space that has lots of different amps to choose from, take a head, dial your tone, play it through a cabinet. Then don't change any of your settings and plug that same amplifier into a different cabinet. You'll be amazed at how drastically different the tone is. Is there a right or a wrong cabinet? No. But if you're struggling to get a tone that you like, you may want to swap out the cab before messing with any of the other elements. Pro tip, shoot out your speakers. If you have a 4x12 cabinet, I guarantee you that each speaker will have a slightly different sound to it. This is why it's so important to know your gear. Record each speaker in the cabinet and then listen back for the differences. Pick the one that suits the tone that you're after. This is a lot to think about, which is why a load box can be so useful. A load box is a piece of gear that takes the signal that's coming out of your amplifier and converts it into something that's safe to plug into your computer. Do not plug your amplifier directly into your interface. Guitar cabinets are expensive. For the price of one cabinet, you can get a load box along with hundreds of impulse responses, which are essentially simulated guitar cabs. They're easy to use and you'll get a lot of options. The next slice of the guitar tone pie is mic choice and placement. If the cabinet matters more than the amplifier, you can bet that the mic you choose, as well as where you place it, is going to be next on the list of importance. Sure, there are go-to microphones to use when you're trying to capture a heavy guitar tone, like an SM57 or a 421, but you can be creative here. You may get a great guitar tone out of a microphone that's not thought of as a go-to for heavy music. Remember though that mic placement is vital. I'm not going to get crazy into this today because this episode would triple in length, but do your homework and experiment. Find the sweet spot on your speaker so you can capture that great tone out of that great cab that you've selected. Finally, the next slice of the pie is the amplifier. Yes, amps matter. Just because they're a smaller piece of the pie, it doesn't mean that they're not important. The key here is knowing your amp and knowing how to properly dial it. For example, I know that on my PV6505, the presence knob does literally nothing until you get to about 8. And the mid-range EQ on that amp is a lot different than the mid-range EQ on my Mesa Triple Rec. You have to know your gear to properly dial in a sick tone. You could have the most badass amp on the planet, but if you don't know how to properly dial it, you're taking shots in the dark. The next slice of the guitar tone pie is the overdrive or distortion pedal. Again, a lot of you may know this, but dialing the gain knob to 11 on your amp is not the way to get that saturated, tight crunch that you're looking for. It's a good way to get swamp mud that sounds awful. The key to getting these amps to behave the way that you want is to set the gain at about 4 or 5, and then introduce a pedal that goes before the amplifier that introduces more gain. There's lots of options here. Lots of different pedals, all with their own tonal controllers that are going to affect the way your guitar sounds. And because of this, it's easy to get option paralysis here, so be careful. With overdrive pedals and tube screamers, I find that turning the gain way down and the volume way up produces the best results. If there's a tone knob, dial that to taste. Experiment a little, find something you like, and go with it. The last slice of the guitar tone pie is the microphone preamp. It's the last piece of the puzzle, but it can affect your tone depending on what kind of mic pre that you have. If you're using the preamp from your interface, chances are it's pretty clean, meaning it's not going to color the sound too much. But if you have an external preamp, like an API 512 or a Neve 1073, that's a different story. The circuitry in these preamps have a certain character that will affect your tone. And if you have one of those preamps, you already know that. Some mic pre's come with an adjustable EQ, like the Phoenix Audio DRS Q4 that I'm speaking to you through right now. This can help you further shape your tone by either boosting or cutting the frequencies that are hitting the microphone. I love this preamp for blending tones. If you have multiple microphones set up on a cabinet or even 2 cabinets, you can boost frequencies in one microphone and cut them in the other, and when you blend the tone, you can get something really unique and awesome. This is another option paralysis warning though. You can spend a lot of time trying different things. And with guitar tones, you're going to run into ear fatigue, lose perspective, and then you don't know what sounds good anymore. Turn the knobs until it sounds cool, then move on. A few more tips before we wrap up. If you're using an amp sim on your computer, all the same principles apply. But one thing I strongly suggest, read the manual. This is just really good practice for any plugin that you use. You can try out different settings and mess with presets, but the manufacturer always knows the details of their software. And a lot of times, they can help you eliminate problems before you find them yourself. Another pro tip, always take a DI. You can get a guitar tone that you absolutely love, but always take a DI. It leaves so many doors open to you later in the process. If you're plugging directly into your interface, dial the gain till you're hitting about -6 to -3 dB. Make sure though that you're analyzing this pre-fader, or any plugins that you have on your chain are going to give you a false reading. Here's an advanced pro tip. If you're recording a guitar tone with a microphone on a cabinet and also taking a DI, record them to the same track. This is going to keep your session a lot more organized and keep you from making a catastrophic editing mistake. It's also way easier to edit a DI waveform. You can find a pick attack very easily on a DI wave. Good luck finding it on that thick black caterpillar that is a heavy guitar tone wave. If you're interested, here's how you do it. Set the track that you're recording to stereo. One of the inputs will be your guitar DI. The other input will be the microphone that's capturing the sound coming out of the speaker. Then insert a plugin that converts the track back to mono. I use Logic, and their stock gain plugin does this perfectly, and it's free. Once the track is set back to mono, you can toggle back and forth between the DI and the sound coming out of your amp with the turn of a knob. Like I said, advanced pro tip. If that was confusing, I apologize. So let's recap. Number 1, tones in the hand. Find the right hand and make sure it's holding the right pick and picking the right way. Next, shoot out a few guitars. Find the right one for the job, make sure it's properly set up and has brand new strings on it. If that guitar has passive pickups, 6 feet or less on the cable. If your guitar has active pickups, doesn't matter. Next, pick a cabinet that has a great sound. If you want more options, buy a load box and get some IRs. Next, grab a microphone that captures the sound that you're after. If you have more than one mic, try them both. Try them all. Try them on different speakers and mess with where you're putting them. Then choose an amplifier. Dial in your tone and make sure you don't overcook the gain. Then put an overdrive pedal before your amp. Turn the knobs until the tone is heavy but tight. Lastly, make sure the gain on your preamp is set so that your tone is hitting your DAW anywhere between -6 and -3 dB. If you have a mic pre with EQ, add or cut frequencies to taste. And once again, always record a DI. Remember, there's no right or wrong, but if you give each slice of the pie the attention it deserves, you'll be on your way to a crushing guitar tone. If you're experienced in recording guitar, I hope you got something new to try out of this episode. If you're not experienced in guitar, your head might be spinning. And I'm sorry, but I get it. If this seems like a lot of work, but you still want a slamming guitar tone for your next release, you can go to riffhavenaudio.com. There you can check out some of the guitar tones that I've crafted. If you like them, hit the Get Started button, answer a couple questions, and then I'll hit you up so we can talk about your project. That's it for this week. Happy tone hunting. I'm gonna eat some pie. Tastes like metal. No, it tastes like pumpkin. It's pumpkin. I like pumpkin, okay?